Hey, we're going to go to Roger Kimball. He is one of my favorite cultural observers. He's a cultural critic. He's the editor and publisher of The New Criterion, which is one of the, it may be the only true highbrow right-wing cultural magazine. And he's president and publisher of the Great Encounter books. He's the author of many books himself, including Tenured Radicals, The Rape of the Masters, and The Fortunes of Permanence, Culture and Anarchy in an Age of Amnesia. Here is an interview I did with him earlier, Roger Kimball. Roger, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
It's great to see you, Drew. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. You are, as I have said before, you're one of the, first of all, you're one of the brightest observers of culture out there, and one of the few openly intellectual supporters of Donald Trump. I think Trump has lost a lot of the intellectual right, but you have stayed with him. So let me put those two things together and ask you this question. Do you think that Donald Trump has had an effect, any effect, on the culture?
I think he's had a huge effect on the culture. Yeah, I think he's had a gigantic effect on the country, which includes the culture, of course.
Yeah.
And I think that the effect has been largely beneficent.
Okay.
And if people talk about his tweets and so on, his untoward language, I actually like a lot of that. I thought it was brilliant when he described the tubby tyrant of North Korea as locked man on the floor of the United Nations, and not simply because it was funny, but also because it had a deeper purpose to it. And I think that purpose is now coming to fruition as we see Kim going to South Korea for the Olympics. They're going to have talks. He's had to take a special train to Beijing so they could tell him what he has to say. Let me just say this: if Donald Trump is able to solve North Korea's nuclear problem, which of course is also our nuclear problem,
right,
diplomatically, that will be one of the greatest diplomatic coups in the 21st century and 20th century. Yep. And it will be, as he would like to say, huge. Huge. Yeah. So I mean, Donald, many of my conservative friends find it impossible to make that leap from the primary season of 2016 to the reality of today. But when we look at what has happened in the 13 months or so that Donald Trump has been president, it's really quite extraordinary. The judicial appointments, I mean, everybody on our side of the aisle, to say everyone sane, understands that this is gigantic because it's not just Neil Gorsuch, it's scores of other judicial appointments which are going to remake the judiciary in a fundamental way. Now we have judges that will interpret the law. They will not endeavor to make social policy by legislating from the bench, which is what they should be doing.
Right.
That is gigantic. What he has done with our energy policy. I mean, the United States is on the brink of being a net exporter of energy. We will probably be the world's largest energy producer in a couple of years. That is huge. You know, it turns out you can drill your way out of the problem. You know? And what he's done with regulation. People, it's easy to say that, but what that means is that he has sparked a fire under the gigantic machine of American productivity, and he has turned up the volume on American optimism among businessmen. It's extraordinary what he's done. Then there are so many other things. What his Secretary of Education is doing to close down this obscene anti-free speech and anti-due process jihad that has been conducted on college campuses for the last 8 years. He's shutting that down. That's a tremendous thing for the cultures. And we could go on listing these items. What I find difficult to understand is how some of our friends on the putative right can make the same list that I just gave you and add a few other items and then say, I still wish that Hillary Clinton had won. What does that mean?
Well, to make their argument, to be the devil's advocate here, one of the things that they complain about with Trump is that he is so divisive. He puts people off so much that the left is now energized to the extreme. Ted Cruz was telling Ben Shapiro this yesterday, that the left is going to have twice the number of voters for the midterms that they had before, and that essentially Trump will destroy that we'll have a couple of victories. We've had these victories, but then the party will be destroyed. Do you see anything in that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that argument, but I don't believe it because what did Donald Trump do? He energized people much more than the left is energizing them, it seems to me. I mean, the left has energized a tiny but vocal and impolite cohort of people who go around and smash things and shout people down and parade around stages with the severed head of a mannequin purporting to be Donald Trump. And they scream at the sky, and they write intemperate tweets about how venal Donald Trump is and so on. But it's actually a very tiny group of people, in my judgment. And the argument that somehow he has destroyed the Republican Party. Well, let's see. We have the White House, we have the Senate, we have the House of Representatives, we have most of the governor's mansions, and we have most of the state legislatures. So, if that's a Republican Party that's been destroyed, bring it on. And the idea that this recent election in Pennsylvania was somehow a bellwether. This is what's going to happen. Well, that would be a good thing, actually. If here you have a guy who won by 600 votes, who is probably the single most conservative Democrat out there. But is that where you see the Democratic Party going? I don't. I think the Democratic Party is the party of Bernie Sanders at the right end, and the party of people like Pocahontas at the left end. It really has. I just don't see it. I think that. I doubt that the Democrats will take the House, and I will bet you a nickel that the Republicans pick up Senate seats.
Wow! All right, I'm going to hold you to that. I want that nickel. If
yes.
Now
or we'll have a dark and Stormy Daniels.
You wrote a piece called "Could Trump do anything to win over the Never Trumpers?" Could he?
No, I don't think so, because I think it's not what he does; it's who he is. And it's not even quite who he is. They've created a monster. And the connection between this monster of their imagination and the reality that is Donald Trump is very tenuous. And so every time he tweets something that they don't like, that they think is impolitic, every time that he misspeaks, every time that he fires someone, they say, "Oh my God, can you believe it? This is such a horrible man. He's going to destroy the republic." Meanwhile, Donald Trump is actually governing, I think, more or less the way that Eisenhower governed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a calm, cool, steady hand. The fact that he has made so many changes of personnel, in my view, is because he could not get people to work for him at the beginning. I mean, if you look at what the situation in January 20th, 2017, and today, how much things have moved in his direction. Not just the approval ratings, although those have moved too, but the quality of his staff, of his cabinet. It's extraordinary. I mean, who could be better than John Bolton as national security advisor?
Right.
Maybe Mike Flynn, but he's unavailable at the moment. Who could be better than Mike Pompeo, as Secretary of State? These are people with backbone who understand the way the world works, and the world's a dangerous place. I'm glad that they're there. Betsy DeVos is terrific. Yep. Scott Pruitt is a national hero. It's a great team. And you have to compare what it was on January 20th when his Republican Congress wasn't quite sure whether they're going to take his phone calls. Now, he got a huge tax plan through, all kinds of good stuff. Did he get everything?
Yeah.
No. Of I mean, that's not the way it works.
It's very weird that Barack Obama was traditionally more presidential, certainly more presentable in some way, and yet he was an absolute radical left-winger, whereas Trump seems so outlandish in some ways, and yet he's really a traditional, he is what you say, he's a traditional Republican, and nothing that he has done has been really extreme at all.
Right. Well, Barack Obama has he has a good tailor. No question about it.
Well, as David Brooks pointed out.
And someone taught him to read a teleprompter in a convincing manner. You know, you move your head to the left, then you move your head to the right, and you just keep doing that. And you use locutions like folks.
Yeah.
Folks, we're just going to solve this problem, you know. And meanwhile, we're going to take over the healthcare industry of the country, and we're going to have a world apology tour where I'm going to, as president of the United States, apologize to everyone. That's not the way you get things done. I mean, Donald Trump understands that America is a powerful nation, and that in order to get things done, he needs to live up to that power.
Yeah,
you know, and he's done that remarkably well. I mean, we've got 7 more years to go, but we'll see.
I'm reading Jonah Goldberg's very entertaining new book, and Jonah Goldberg is a very powerful voice for the Never Trump side. And one of the arguments that he makes is that he's very, very upset by what he calls the tribalism, the nationalism of Donald Trump, as opposed to, and he opposes it to, patriotism. That, in other words, if a patriot loves his country for its ideals and for its creed, but doesn't necessarily just follow it over any cliff that's available, where he says that Trump is essentially just calling to this blind nativism in people. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I don't agree with it. I like Jonah. He's a very entertaining writer, as you say, a smart man. I'll fill in all those kudos. Right. But I don't agree with that. I think Donald Trump is a nationalist, the way that Winston Churchill was a nationalist, or FDR was a nationalist, or John Kennedy was a nationalist, or Ronald Reagan was a nationalist. Nationalism, properly understood, it seems to me, is the most important bulwark for sovereignty and ultimately for the kind of freedom that we cherish in this republic. People say, "Oh, what about? Isn't it like Nazi Germany?" Well, no. The operative word in National Socialism is socialism. That's the operative word. And as for the tribalism and so on, I don't see that. It was like people would say the same thing about the Tea Party. It seemed to me that the Tea Party people I met were housewives and accountants and doctors and lawyers and talk show hosts like you. They were ordinary people who wanted their country back, who thought that national sovereignty was a good idea, and that the president of the United States should be, first of all, speaking for the United States. He should put America first, to coin a phrase. And Donald Trump, I think, does that. You could say, well, are tariffs is the right way to do that? Well, maybe not. Maybe they are. Maybe it's a strategy. Maybe it's a deal. Making shit you play when you go into a game. I don't know the answer to that. But the idea that somehow there's something nativist or something tribal, these are supposed to be negative words. You can get the image of semi-clad natives dancing around a cauldron looking for a missionary to put into it. That's not what's going on at all. It really isn't. So, in my view,
one of my favorite of your books is Tenured Radicals, which is about the universities, and you mentioned Betsy DeVos changing some of the rules there. But has anything improved in our universities? Are academies still what they were? I mean, I keep seeing right-wing speakers shouted down and these riots. Yes. And have we lost the young, do you think?
Well, I'm not sure we've lost the young, but I'll tell you a story that will answer your question. I wrote an essay for the New Criterion called Retaking the University back in, 10 years ago. And my idea was that we would appeal over the heads of the faculty and the graduate students and the deans and the provosts and the presidents to alumni, to parents, to donors, and they would see that what had happened to these institutions was a revolution, whereby all of the things that they had been entrusted to do, they were now doing the opposite. So universities exist; they're given incredible privileges in our society because we counted them to preserve and transmit the highest values of our civilization. We think that's worth doing. I think it's worth doing. But it turns out they're not doing that. They're trashing. They're trashing our civilization. So I thought we could appeal over the heads of the tenured radicals who run the institutions now to these other groups. But it turns out I was wrong. You can't do that. I was going to write a book with that title and and I said, it's just too far gone. One person who read the article said, well, Kimball's, it's kind of an okay idea, but this is back in 2006 or something. He said, we got a lot of military hardware around here. And I think what we should do is put it to good use. We fire up the tanks and we go first, let's say to Cambridge. And we can't be too early because they don't get up too early there. I'd say 10 o'clock in the morning. And we start firing. And we keep firing until it's a smoldering room. And that's good. Maybe that's plan B, you see. So, it is curious, Drew, that the intellectual center of gravity in cultures is sometimes in the academy and sometimes it's not. I think this is a period of time when it really isn't. Of course, the sciences, engineering, yes, it is. But for the humanities, for those disciplines that pose the question, how should we live our lives? What is the good life for man? That is, the universities are stuck in this self-infatuated, narcissistic insanity. And I think most of the interesting work that's being done on those sorts of questions is being done outside the university. And so I think the answer to this is probably twofold. One is to strengthen those institutions whereby this interesting work is being done outside the university, and to think about alternatives to the university, everything from MOOCs, these online things, to starting new colleges that are frankly devoted to preserving what's valuable in our civilization. I mean, there are a few exceptions, like Hillsdale College. Right, but once I say Hillsdale College, it's not that easy to come up with a list of additional. But there are others, but there are not that many others. And what that requires is
I have to stop you because I'm just out of time and I won't be able to play it. But that is one of the that was one of the most fascinating answers to that question I've heard. So I'm really glad you said it. I hope you'll come back and we'll continue the conversation.
Yeah, I'm always
Roger Kimball, thank you very much.
Take care.